your way, right?
I love you so much, that kind of stuff.
I'm sorry, babe.
Yeah, totally.
I know. Well, we're going to hear more from Steve Geyer in just a moment. Stay with us.
We got a great show, guys. Lots to fit in, but we're going to do it. In 3, 2.
We are in the business of delivering hope every single day.
When you watch 100 Huntley Street, you're going to hear stories of transformation, great Bible teaching, people who have been changed by God, and people who are changing the world for God. Greg, your guest's amazing.
It's one of those stories you wouldn't believe until you actually hear it.
I think 100 Huntley Street is for everyone. I think everyone has gone through times of loss. Everyone is looking for hope. Everyone's looking for purpose.
100 Huntley Street is the longest running daily television show in Canada and has literally changed generations. It's a two-way experience. 100 Huntley Street is not paid for by advertisers. It's the people across Canada, partners that are giving to this ministry.
Today, I'm going to bring you a story of someone whose life was transformed while on the show.
The proof that this ministry is really making a difference is the people that we hear from.
1,200 people a day call us for prayer, and we know that they're facing the end of their marriage. We know that they're facing their kids in crisis, a mental health issue, or a job loss, financial challenges, health challenges. And they talk about how their lives are being transformed by God's love through this program.
That's really what gives us that strength to continue on.
What motivates me is the fact that Jesus has done so much in my life. And I know of friends and family who have been transformed by Jesus. This is the reason why I love being a part of this ministry, is because Jesus is the hope.
We are 100% viewer supported. We are so passionate about this media mission of bringing the message of Jesus coast to coast across Canada. We cannot do it without you. Would you please consider supporting this vital media mission? You can give online at crossroads.ca/donate or call us at 1-800-265-3100.
I love you, Victor. And there's nothing you can ever do to change that. But God made Victor for a purpose, and it was not drugs. It's not drugs.
A study a few years ago found that people avoided shame more than any other emotion, worrying more about their reputation than their conscience. It's a topic that's not very often discussed, but today we're taking the lid off of it with comedian, author, and pastor Steve Geyer. Welcome.
Good morning.
People thought we brought you on to do comedy, but surprise,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about something really deep.
Well, this early in the morning, comedy could be dangerous. So, still waking up.
Well, we don't want to go there. So this topic of shame, first of all, I want to say thanks for talking about it, because I think it's not an easy, it's shame is telling you, don't talk about me, basically, right? And you decided to be brave. Thank you for that. How do we recognize what shame is? You talk about this feeling that we get in the pit of our stomach. How do you recognize it?
Well, it's anything that makes you want to hide or anything that makes you want to cover up. And one of the things that in our culture is, it's a common phrase of shame on you, shame on you. And when I was doing stand-up and then as a pastor and then doing stand-up again, people come up and will tell me anything. And as a pastor, sometimes they're a little bit more, you know, guarded because I see them every Sunday. But as a comic, for whatever reason, people would come and share their stories with me because I'm leaving now. I'm leaving town and their secret's safe. And it was always something that they were ashamed of, something they wanted to hide, and something they couldn't tell anybody. And that's how it would start out. I've never been able to tell anybody this, but I can tell you. And the whisper, the secrecy. So I was fascinated with it, and then I started realizing, wait a minute, I carry this too. So I started looking, and my research led me to try to find an example of good shame in the Bible, and it does not exist.
And you actually, so you realized that you've been dealing with this your whole life.
Whole life.
And yet you chose a career, okay, stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
Basically within 10 seconds you're getting feedback, and it's not always positive.
Right, and it's dangerous, but my need for acceptance outweighed my fear of rejection, which was interesting. It's an interesting, very interesting juxtaposition of being willing to go out completely unarmed in front of, you know, an audience who is, you know, when comics talk, we talk about, You know, hey, I killed him tonight. Well, that's what you do to an enemy, right? But the vernacular, like if you do really well, I killed him, but if you don't do well, I bombed, right? So there's all this kind of imagery that's this kind of combative thing that you have with an audience. Because like, unlike a singer, like when a singer sings and all of a sudden they're funny, it's like, oh, added bonus, they're hilarious. But when a comic goes out, it's like,
Make me laugh.
you better be funny. And so...
Thankfully you are.
Right. So, well, yeah, thank you. But what happened is I had to kind of dig deep into me and go, wow, my need for approval outweighed my fear of rejection.
And the crazy thing about shame is that it kind of convinces you to hide. So you hide whatever it is you're ashamed of.
Sure.
And then it works really hard to actually expose you. So it's this crazy cycle that's going on. You know, we see it with the Me Too movement or anything where people are being exposed in the media, for example.
Yeah.
It's the thing that they most tried to hide.
Well, it's very sticky, too. It's like if I'm ashamed of something or if I'm shamed, it's real easy to shame you, and I don't even realize I'm doing it, but I'm operating out of what I know. I'm operating about how I feel. And now this whole thing where it's like the public shame that's going on, like shame, what's interesting, there's kind of a corollary between internet shaming, like Twitter shaming. There are these people that are anonymously typing out stuff that they would never say to your face. Never say it to your face. And shame's shadowy like that. Shame's very shadowy. It masks itself as constructive criticism, or it masks itself as one of the biggest masks is sarcasm. When people are sarcastic, I do a whole chapter on that, which is interesting.
It's a convicting chapter. I can't.
Yeah,
so we're
it's
talking
hard.
chapter. This is from your book, Shameless, which is amazing. I was literally so shamed, sitting at my desk at work, bawling my eyes out, going, I'm not crying. I'm not crying at my desk. So powerful. And that whole thing on sarcasm, because sometimes we're trying to address something that we're being not passive aggressive, but maybe that is the right word, that you don't want to tell somebody, so you're kind of teasing them about it because you're trying to tell them, really, Steve, next time you need to be on time or bring your card so you're not locked out of the building, for example. Which you didn't have one, so I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But no, that's what people do. And then they use sarcasm and shame and all this stuff to publicly shame someone, but they would never say it to their face. And to really love somebody is to say, it's like a doctor's Hippocratic oath. I'm going to hurt you, but I'm not going to harm you. I need to hurt your feelings because there's something that's going on in your life that is actually harming you. So I'm going to hurt you, but I'm not going to harm you. And what I did with the book was I tried to write it in that vein of what I love about the feedback that I've gotten is from people who say, I feel like you're talking to me. And that's the style it's written. It was written as a conversation because I bring up the objection, and then I answer the questions that that I think people are asking. Because while I'm writing the book, I'm thinking about actually sitting down, talking with somebody, and having a conversation to help them discover, do I have shame in me? And one of my favorite moments was a friend of mine I had sent the book to, and I said, hey, I would value your opinion on this. And I said, and I told him what the title was, and he said, well, I don't deal with any of that stuff. Oh, okay, great. So he's reading it, and he's got like maybe 2 or 3 chapters, and he goes, oh, this is really good, you know, I like your writing style, but I don't have any problems with this, blah, blah, blah. 2 days later, I get a phone call. I started laughing. He goes, okay, man. And it was so funny because he didn't realize how shame was impacting him, but what he really got was how the story in the book where I think you may have read that part where there's this guy who's just being really cruel, and I challenged him on it. And his wife, he got really mad and everything, and he's like, rah, 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 and his wife just started crying and said, you know, he thought he mistook her crying because I had called somebody out, and it was mean. She goes, no, it's true. And, you know, so shame is this, again, nowhere in the scriptures is it a good thing. Isaiah 58 says, you always forget the shame of your youth. Shame is never a good thing. Conviction is a wonderful thing. Revelation is a wonderful thing. But shame, why did Adam and Eve hide? Because they were ashamed. And they hid. It's the first response.
And you talk about that difference between healthy sorrow. So when we do something to
Sorrow.
hurt someone or something wrong, we should feel bad about it and we should make restitution or make it right. But shame lives on with us, you know, and like, you're not okay. There's something wrong with you. How do we start to overcome that?
You know, for those who are watching that aren't believers or have yet to see what the scriptures say, my solution is, you know, if I've got the right antidote for your problem, but I'm afraid to hurt your feelings or offend you with it, that's not going to help you, is it? So I'm going to risk by saying, find out what the scriptures say about you and me. Go to the Word. Find out. There are three voices. There's the voice of the enemy, there's the voice of God, and the voice of in our own head. In our own head, we'll always find the worst thing about us, and the enemy will always agree with it. But God goes, no. It's the difference between listening to your left ear and your right ear. You're horrible. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. You're a loser. I love you without measure. You are never going to amount to anything, for I know the plans I have for you, right? And so it's the difference of shutting off that one ear to go, you know what, I'm going to learn to become deaf in this ear so that I can hear better in this ear. And so to Christian, non-Christian, is find what the scriptures say about you, and whether you're a believer or not, if you will read it and just apply it to yourself, you will find how amazingly comforting it is, even if you don't believe that it's inspired, but you'll be amazed at how comforting it is because the words are true.
Now, as a person of faith, you walked for many years with this, and I think, you know, if people really knew what we're talking about, if they were really honest with themselves, everybody has shame to a degree.
Yeah.
But you've really come into a new place of freedom. So was it reading those scriptures and over, like what was it for you? Or was it recognizing it?
It was recognizing it and owning it, and realizing that not only, and having to address some things that I didn't want to go there. For a long time, I was one of those people that would say, I don't cry, and I didn't. And it was like, because I'm afraid if I start crying, I may never stop. Well, there's fear there, and there's shame, because there's places that in my past that I didn't want to go to, but they were always tripping me up in my present. So what happened in my past is affecting my present, and it's going to show up in my future. So I've got to deal with it. And so I started really through conversations with other people, helping them, and then just finding out what the scripture says about shame, and then owning it, and then having to, it's the, what is it, what is it, 1 Corinthians 5:10, where it says, we're destroying speculations and every lofty thing that raises itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take every thought captive to make it obedient to Christ. And I would quote that verse about 100 times a minute, because I had to retrain. I needed to be transformed by the renewing of my mind. And if I'm going to be transformed by the renewing of my mind, I'd like to have something that's positive about me, that says that yes, I'm flawed, and yes, I'm a sinner, but I'm not a waste of space.
So good. There's so much more to learn from this awesome, awesome book. I can't recommend it enough. Shameless with Steve Geyer. Make sure you get your copy. Amazon, I'm assuming, probably.
Sure. Amazon, yeah.
Google it. You can get it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming with us
thank you.
today. There's so much more we can talk about. We're out of time.
No worries. I'll come back if they unlock the door.
Okay, that's a deal.
Okay.
Let's go over to Sean.
Wow, what a powerful interview. Hey, you know what sometimes we do is we take our identity and we put it on a horizontal plane, and that's where shame sets in. But if we listen to God in that vertical conversation with Him, man, our value, our shame is removed, but our value is restored. Hey, we have prayer lines that are open 24/7, and you can look at that at the bottom of the screen, and you can also reach us with that prayer@crossroads.ca. We'll be back right after this.
Happiness is not what you have, found in what you have, or what you can buy, or what you own. Those things come and go. Happiness is really found not only in who you are, your character, but even more importantly in who you are to God and with God. I have found, you know, the scripture says the joy of the Lord is my strength. There really is a difference between my happiness and God's happiness. Here's the difference. My happiness is just happy. So that means I'm only happy when good things happen. That's why I'm happy. So if bad things happen, I'm not happy. If good things happen, I'm happy. God's happiness is joy. I have joy whether good things happen or bad things happen. I have the joy of knowing there's a God that loves me, a God that cares for me, a God that wants what's best for me, a God that has a home for me in heaven, and a God that has a plan for my life. And so that's where real happiness is found, in the relationship with the God and the only one that can give us true happiness.
Call now with your donation and request your copy of 52 Weeks Through the Psalms devotional, by Dr. James Merritt, 1-800-265-3100, or make your donation at crossroads.ca/donate. As you begin the new year, what better time is there to be refreshed in the Psalms? This one-year daily devotional will help you dive into God's Word, hit reset on a fresh new year, and enrich your relationship with God as you find new reasons to come before Him in prayer and praise. This book is our thanks for your ministry support. It's because of your financial gift that we can provide stories of hope and healing to Canadians each day. Thank you. With your gift of $45 or more, we would love to send you this great devotional. Call 1-800-265-3100 or visit crossroads.ca/donate.
We really tricked people today, didn't we, Sean? Like, we told people we're having a comedian on.
Totally.
We show his comedy, and then we go into this really deep, deep heart subject.
I know.
It's good stuff.
It's good stuff, though, but it's good for us to really go and dive into that and open up the darkness that can be there and reveal it to the light, because it changes who you are.
Absolutely, and we're all in process, and it never, ever ends. So, on that note...
Well, we have Vancouver Pastor Mark, who has an interesting perspective on the Big Bang Theory. Take a listen.
Hey, Mark Clark here, the author of The Problem of God, and today we're exploring one of the big issues with the problem of science, which is basically, it's been pitched to us that the reason people don't believe in God or Christianity is because they believe in science, and there's this either-or dichotomy. I'm a science person, and that's why I'm not a theist or believe in God. And so it's kind of recognized. You watch, news or something, and they have a really smart person on, and they say, I'm coming to you from an atheistic, anti-theist viewpoint, and I have a PhD from Oxford, and then they shoot over to the Christian, and, he's sitting in a swamp somewhere and going, I like that, and you're like, okay, well, this isn't really a contest. Smart people don't believe in God. The reality is that's a myth. The university itself was a 12th century Christian invention. The modern scientific realities are built on the garden of Christianity and actually grow out of convictions that Christianity had and has about the world, where modern science was actually built out of it. The fact that you could do a hypothesis and verification and test things that would prove true over and over and over again. That's not true about every worldview. That's not true about the way that certain worldviews speak about the world as an illusion, for instance, as Maya, or other ones that say that plants and trees and the water are actually divine in and of themselves, so you can't poke and prod them and actually put them in any kind of test. Christianity always said, let's track creation. Let's track the natural world and see what it says about God and how he's made the world. In fact, when the Big Bang came out as a theory from Edwin Hubble, it was Christianity that said, beautiful, all space, time, matter, energy came into existence in a single moment. Boy, isn't that beautiful, like Genesis 1. It was the non-Christian world that said, we're skeptical about the theory of the Big Bang because it reeks of religion. It reeks of God actually create a metaphysical, something that transcends nature, matter, space, creating those things. We don't like that concept. And so what we begin to realize is people thought that as science developed in society, that religion would die. But the reality is actually the opposite. As science has developed, and we've delved more into biology, for instance, and we've seen that in a single-celled amoeba, there's more information than volumes of encyclopedia, like logical information. As we've looked into cosmology and we've seen the beginning of the universe, as we've looked into design and the way things are calculated out in DNA strands and the way systems work, and there's certain mathematical and gravity realities and the way that the universe actually exists, and how the amount of life-giving variables for Earth to have ever given birth to life at all of those things from a mathematical perspective are statistically impossible without some kind of mind directing it. And as science has delved into these things, they've begun to realize that there's actually, if you fall, see, here's what we want to do. We want to run the ramp of reason before taking the leap of faith. All of us want to follow evidence. And some people say, well, yeah, but you're an evidential person. I'm an evidential person and you're a person of faith. But the reality is everyone has a faith position. Everything that you believe, you have a faith position about it. You don't come as a blank slate and say, I don't believe in this only because I believe in objective data about the universe or whatever. Everything that you believe has a faith position about it, a presupposition. You don't believe in Christian belief A because you've already committed to non-Christian belief B, but you can't necessarily prove that reality to be true. For instance, as philosophers have pointed out, without using circular argument, you can't even prove right now that you are literally not a brain in a vat. That all of your memories weren't downloaded into your brain 30 seconds ago. And that you're just, you were born yesterday and all of your memories are false and they've just been downloaded to you and you have no way to actually prove this. It's a faith position that you have that your memories can be trusted. You can't prove that your memories can be trusted without being circular, in a non-circular way. Because you have to trust your memories in order to prove that you don't have memory. And so the reality is, all of us deal with faith positions all the time. For instance, my friend who's a nurse, she works in a hospital, and they say hospital is a place for just secular thinking, just atheistic, naturalistic thinking. Religion and positions of faith cannot inform anything that we do. And so there was this guy on life support, and all the doctors agreed that they should take him off because he was suffering, and they pulled him off life support, and he passed away, and all the doctors said, well, at least he's not suffering anymore. And right there, she said, that's a faith position, because how do they know that he's not suffering more? The minute you say that person's not suffering anymore, that's a metaphysical statement about what happens in the afterlife. But you don't have any proof of what happens in the afterlife. You don't know if the soul goes on to exist forever and ever. You believe that based on faith. You say, well, there is no afterlife. But the reality is, all of us have faith positions at every moment that we live out of. The question is, which ones are actually true? Which ones are most true? Based on science, based on history, based on what's philosophically true and experientially true? We need to answer the question of origins, meaning, morality, and destiny. Go through the marketplace of ideas and say, I have to actually hook myself into what actually is true and what gives meaning. And I think Christianity does that the best, not as a whimsical, I hope it's true kind of reality, but something that actually is scientifically legitimate and philosophically legitimate and historically legitimate. And that's why I gave my life to it after I studied more and more and more. Which is why oftentimes if you go to a university, it's oftentimes the humanities or the social sciences or the literature departments that have very few theists or Christians in them. But you go over to the philosophy department, or you go over to the science department, you're going to find people who believe in God. That's got to give you pause.
Thanks, Mark. I am so enjoying Mark Clark this week. And I think it's so interesting that, you know, even within the faith community, you've got the people who are like really intellectual and are really studied and really can explain faith and attribute themselves to faith because it is intellectual. Then you've got the heart people who had an experience with God and they're a Christian because of that experience. And it's all about this heart relationship with him. And sometimes we're fighting each other, but I think it's both.
Definitely. I would fully agree that it's both. You see God in his majesty, and he always makes things symbiotic. They work one with the other, and without one, the other doesn't function as well. And you see this demonstrated in marriage when you have this couple that loves one another, and they complement each other in one way or another. I mean, it's kind of like that. You really need both sides to really make this Christian faith really sink home for me.
Yeah, I kind of think if I only was committed to God because I proved he was real, it would be kind of like being married to someone that you never talked to and never saw and never heard from. You know, there's another side to it as well. You need that. You need, like, I love my wife because of this, but you also need to have that relationship with him where he's talking to you, where he's, you know, pouring love into your heart, where you're pouring love into him. There's something about it, and I just can't divorce the one to the other, but I think sometimes we don't talk about what Mark's talking about, some of that evidence and some of that philosophy and all the things that undergird it.
Yeah, definitely. You know, when we take our emotional thing, I mean, that's something that God gave us. It was this ability to emote these kinds of things. He talks about David when he cries and David when he has joy. And to remove ourselves from that is not good. And then to take away any type of reason, as Paul says, you know, come with an answer, a response. It takes away from the faith.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show today. We had a lot of fun. Thanks for joining us. And don't forget, you can catch 100 Huntley Street on many platforms and mobile devices, including the app Castle. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for your ongoing support of Crossroads, a member of the Canadian Council of Christian Charities. You can write to Crossroads, P.O. Box 5100, Burlington, Ontario, L7R 4M2.
Cheryl Weber's wardrobe, provided by Melanie Lynn.
As a child fears the dark, we often fear what we can't see. The Bible reminds us 365 times not to fear, because God wants us to put our trust in Him. If you would like to see your way out of the dark, call our 24/7 prayer lines at 1-866-273-4444 or visit crossroads.ca/247prayer. Anytime, anywhere, we're here for you.
Castle is the first video streaming service that's been created to serve you, with high-quality, faith-based media for all ages and a live 24/7 prayer chat. Castle features Christian TV shows, documentaries, teaching series, and kids content. Start your free 30-day trial of Castle and discover this quality Christian resource made for your entertainment and your spiritual growth. Sign up now at intothecastle.com.